Welcome to True Crime Tangles, where we unravel the chilling stories that grip us with disbelief. In this episode, we delve into the disturbing case of Colonel David Russell Williams, a former commander and decorated Air Force pilot of the Canadian Air Force. What seemed like a distinguished military career took a dark turn, as Williams evolved from a top officer to a serial rapist and murderer, leaving a trail of shock and horror in his wake. Join us as we uncover the unsettling details of his crime that forever changed the lives of his victims and shocked the nation. Colonel Russell Williams was born on March 7, 1963, in Bromsgrove, England, to Christine Nani and Cedric Williams. He moved to Chalk River, Ontario, when his father worked at Chalk River Laboratories. After his parents divorced at age 6, he adopted his stepfather's name, Dr. Jerry Savka, and relocated to Scarborough, Ontario. In Scarborough, Colonel Williams initially attended Birchmont Collegiate before completing his education at Upper Canada College. He delivered newspapers, learned piano, and later moved to South Korea with his family in 1979. Joining the Canadian Forces in 1987, he became a pilot, received promotions, and earned a Master of Defense Studies in 2004. Williams supported the Iraq War and held significant roles including commanding officers of the 437 Transport Squadron and Camp Mirage in Dubai. He married Mary Elizabeth Harriman on June 1, 1991. His interests included photography, fishing, and running, as mentioned in his Department of National Defense biography. In addition to carrying out his responsibilities, Colonel Williams concealed a dark side that was unknown to everyone. On January 28, 2010, a 27-year-old woman named Jessica Lloyd went missing from her home in Belleville, Ontario. Investigators found distinctive tire tracks in the snow near her house. A week later, the police checked the tire tracks of all the cars passing by her home on February 4, 2010. They noticed that the tire tracks of a Nissan Pathfinder, driven by Colonel Williams instead of his usual BMW, matched those near Jessica's home. On February 7, 2010, around 3 p.m., the police called Colonel Williams while he was at his home in Westboro, Ottawa, where his wife lived. They asked him to come in for questioning. During the interview at the police station, Colonel Williams was confronted with evidence of tire tracks and boot prints at Jessica's home. Confronted with irrefutable evidence of his wrongdoing, Colonel Williams found himself unable to mount a defense. In an effort to mitigate the repercussions for his wife and evade substantial legal expenses, he informed the police of his intention to plead guilty to all charges. The investigators found that Jessica lived on the highway where Colonel Williams drove by every day, on his way home. Subsequently, he first encountered her during one of his regular runs in late January, while Jessica was working out on a treadmill in her basement. A few nights later, Colonel Williams broke into her home while she was sleeping. Following his disturbing routine, he tied her up, covered her eyes with duct tape, and defiled her. Throughout the ordeal, he took photos and recorded videos. After assaulting her at her house, Williams drove her to his cottage in Cozy Cove Lane and subjected her to further abuse. He made her shower while he watched. Despite Jessica's pleas for clothing and requests to be taken to the hospital as her condition worsened in the chilly aftermath of being naked in the shower, she reluctantly complied with his demands, fearing for her life. She even modeled lingerie for his pictures and ate the fruit he gave her to stay alive. However, he ultimately struck her from behind with a flashlight, strangled her, and moved her lifeless body to his garage before dumping it on a rural road near his cottage. The next morning, Williams piloted a troop flight to California, likely thinking he had once again escaped justice. The investigation discovered hidden keepsakes and other evidence in his home. They also found a print from one of the crime scenes that matched his boot. It was revealed that Colonel Williams was also linked to the death of Corporal Marie-France Comeau, a 37-year-old military traffic technician. She was found dead in her home in late November 2009. Colonel Williams admitted that he met Corporal Marie-France Comeau on a military flight. Being her commander, he had access to her personal information like her schedule and phone number. One night, he parked about 600 to 700 meters from her home in a wooded area. he walked through the woods, broke into her house through a basement window, and stayed there for over an hour during the first break-in. He took pictures of himself in her underwear and with a pleasure device. When Corporal Camo returned home, she noticed someone had gone through her undergarments. She suspected her ex-boyfriend, who denied it. On the last night of her life, around 10:30 to 11 p.m. in November 2009, Colonel Williams entered her home in Brighton through the basement window and hid behind the furnace, waiting for her to go to sleep. Before retiring, Camo went to find one of her cats in the basement, where it was seated and fixated on Williams. Even though his face was concealed, Camo noticed him, leading Williams to strike her repeatedly with a flashlight. A struggle ensued in the basement, resulting in Camo falling backwards, allowing Williams to overpower her. Subsequently, Williams bound Camo to a post using clothing and photographed her in that vulnerable state, with only a shawl covering her. After securing the house, Williams captured more images of an unconscious and unclothed Camo on the staircase. He then took her to her bedroom, where he subjected her to a 2-hour-long assault, documenting the horrifying act through additional photographs and videotaping. At that moment, Williams tried to smother Camo with a pillow, but she resisted and attempted to flee. Despite her efforts, he caught her again. Already with duct tape covering her eyes and mouth, Williams added duct tape over her nose, ultimately leading to her suffocation. Following her tragic death, Williams meticulously cleaned the bedding with bleach, documenting himself in the process. After that, Williams drove to Ottawa, where he was expected at a meeting later that day. During the drive, he disposed of his shoes and the rope used in Camo's attack. When Camo failed to appear for a dinner date with her boyfriend, he visited her house and discovered her lifeless body on the bed. During the interrogation, Williams confessed that his motive for killing Camo stemmed from his fear of becoming a suspect if she reported the assault to the police. After being arrested on February 8, 2010, Williams was put in custody. The Canadian Forces replaced him with a new commander, and they took down his biography from their official website. Police all over the country reopened cases of unsolved murders of young women in places where Colonel Williams had worked before. In April 2010, he was put on suicide watch in jail after attempting to harm himself. In July 2010, Colonel Williams appeared in court via video link and waived his right to a preliminary inquiry. In October 2010, Colonel Williams finally pled guilty to all charges, including sexual assaults, rape, murder, and more than 80 fetish-style break-and-enters. During the trial, it was revealed that Colonel Williams had committed numerous sexual assaults and had pedophilic tendencies, stealing underwear from girls as young as 9. He had a detailed record of his crimes, took pictures and videos, and left notes for his victims. On October 21, 2010, Colonel Williams was sentenced to 2 life terms for first-degree murder, along with 2 10-year sentences for other sexual assaults, 2 additional 10-year sentences for forcible confinement, and an astonishing 82 one-year sentences for breaking and entering, all to be served concurrently. The life sentence meant Williams had to serve a minimum of 25 years before becoming eligible for parole. Colonel Williams was expelled from the armed forces and stripped of his rank, decorations, and uniform. His vehicle was crushed, and he was initially held at Kingston Penitentiary, later moved to Port Cartier Institution in Quebec as Kingston Penitentiary was closing. In December 2010, Colonel Williams' wife initiated the process of filing for divorce. However, the divorce did not reach its finalization until several years later. As we close the chapter on Colonel David Russell Williams, our hearts go out to the victims of their families, whose lives were forever altered by these heinous acts. In the face of unimaginable tragedy, we extend our deepest sympathies and compassion. By shedding light on these crimes, we honor the memory of those affected and contribute to the collective understanding that may help prevent such atrocities in the future. We implore you to subscribe, like, and activate the notification bell, ensuring you stay attuned to our True Crime channel. Your unwavering support fuels our quest for answers and justice.